All right, so yeah, today I'm really excited for this one. I have Brent with me, who is the founder and CEO at Umee, and Umee has a pretty big and ambitious goal here, but it's really exciting. They're trying to build a cross-chain lending and borrowing market, and are powered by IBC as a layer zero, and also use Tendermint for the fast finality. So it's a Cosmos project, also implements the gravity bridge to unlock the value and bridge the Ethereum ecosystem to Cosmos. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, in the future. So yeah, I'm really excited and honored to have your time today, Brent. Thanks so much for coming on. How is everything going in New York?
Yeah, really appreciate this, and a lot of exciting stuff happening in the Umee ecosystem, and things are just coming together nicely. New York's all right, things are opening up. There's new protocols with COVID cards, but we're just kind of getting used to things. But yeah, we're just happy to be building and just moving things forward with the network launch.
Awesome, yeah. And before we jump into Umee and decentralized cross-chain lending, and also interchain staking and those kind of things, I've read a little bit about you here on LinkedIn, and man, you are in the crypto ecosystem since many years. Early Ethereum contributor. You worked at Consensus, then you worked at Tendermint in 2019 and 2020, I think. So can you expand a little bit on your personal background? What got you hooked about crypto and blockchain in the first place, and then how you went down the kind of like Cosmos rabbit hole, and which then led to the creation of Umee?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, happy to give you a bit of background about myself, and yeah, I guess I started my career in bond trading. So I traded MBS products. These assets were highly sensitive to interest rates and exhibited a phenomenon called negative convexity. And so, I traded this for a number of years. But what really caught my eye was one of my finance professors. His name was Campbell Harvey. He was known for inverse yield curves. So he wrote an economic paper on how inverse yield curves result in economic recessions in like the 1990s, and it became a major thought piece on like interest rate environments. He actually got like really disillusioned with teaching back in 2009 after the financial crisis. He just thought, well, the world's not doing too well. But he was also a major libertarian. And so when he discovered Bitcoin in like 2010, or just during that time period, he got excited about teaching again. And so he taught one of the first classes on Bitcoin in around, I believe it was 2012 or 2013. And at that time, Fred Ersham was starting Coinbase, and so Fred was also one of his students. And basically, after discovering Bitcoin through his class, I started trying to pitch Bitcoin to some of my clients in the bond trading world. Did not work out very well. Bond investors were not very happy about Bitcoin at the time, and so I realized it was time to move on. So I joined Consensus in 2016. I was really lucky. So I was lucky enough to be one of the first like 30 employees, helped build the company from 30 people to 1,200 in the early days, and basically saw a lot of the ups and downs of Ethereum. So one of the most memorable like time periods during my time there was I was in meetings with a lot of the early folks like Vitalik, Joe Lubin, Heiko Hees, Martin Kopelman, Andrew Keys, and some of the early folks during the time of the DAO hack. And that was, I I gotta say, during that 35-day period, I didn't really sleep very much. I kind of slept at the Consensus HQ at 49 Bogart Street and just like managed meetings and just like project managed and just help manage like the environment. And basically, it was during that time that I was able to hear Vitalik's vision of ETH 2.0 back then. He called it Serenity, and it just reinvigorated my passion and just interest in this space. And so, spent some time building out the Ethereum ecosystem. Very, very happy about where the vision was going. And I eventually moved on to Tendermint. So at Tendermint, I led strategy, basically helped build out the Cosmos ecosystem, saw a lot of the development of IBC, and also brought projects into the Cosmos ecosystem, including a few dexes. We were early big proponents of the Gravity Dex and the Cosmos space, and I worked a bit with Bee Harvest in the early days, and trying to bring them into the Tendermint ecosystem, and just saw a lot of DeFi development. And so, subsequent to Tendermint, I started Umee. Umee was designed to be, a cross chain DeFi hub, where users can just interact between Cosmos and Ethereum and other blockchain ecosystems, while basically allowing more interactions with the broader money Lego space.
Awesome, yeah, that's really cool. And it also then makes sense in that context that Tendermint and also Consensus are both early backers and supporters of your idea with Umee. And it's actually pretty impressive. On I think in June of this year, 3 months ago, you announced the completion of the seed round for Umee, and there's some big names there, right? You have obviously already said Consensus and Tendermint, but also Coinbase, Brian Kelly Capital Management. So Brian Kelly is also, for those who don't know, Cosmos Bull, Alameda Research, CMS Holdings, like a lot of big names. Can you walk us through that process? Then you said, okay, you had this idea to build this protocol, to the moment when you really, basically 2 or 3 months ago had everything in place that it takes to make this a successful thing. And also, can you tell us currently what's the team size? Who else is involved? Because so far I've mostly seen things from you, but I think there's probably more people involved, right? So can you talk a little bit about the team and kind of like the origin story then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to share just some of the bootstrapping process for this project. So we have a lot of great supporters. So we're pretty fortunate for the folks who seeded this protocol and helped bootstrap it. So we got a lot of solid support from Polychain, our lead. Basically, they were able to provide a lot of guidance and strong understanding of just how to navigate the initial time periods of bootstrapping this cross chain DeFi hub. Coinbase, great ecosystem. Just I think they see a lot of solid potential for projects like this, and just sort of the future implications of what we want to do with the broader DeFi ecosystem. And so, Tendermint, Consensus. I'd say that I think that the value provided by some of these past ecosystems is pretty fundamental. So, having worked at Consensus for like 3.5 years and having been at Tendermint for as long as I have, I think being able to utilize the resources and just the guidance from these different ecosystems is just very fundamental to building out a DeFi protocol like this. And of course, Ideo Colab, Brian Kelly Capital Management, Alameda, just the support that they're able to provide is really useful for building out more exposure in the cross-chain DeFi side of things. So on our team we have Bez. So I think a lot of folks, possibly everyone in the Cosmos space, knows Bez. He's our lead engineer on the Cosmos side, and we're building out a pretty robust team on top of Bez's skill set. And we're broadly expanding this team ecosystem to include a lot of development frameworks to better emphasize the Cosmos side of things for this cross-chain DeFi protocol. We also have Zach Midgen. We work together at Consensus, and basically, he wrote some of the original Patricia Merkle tree libraries for Ethereum. since the early days. So some of these libraries underpin the entire Ethereum blockchain, and so we're also building out an Ethereum team, based on some of his experiences. And so we're going to be integrating some EVM compatible networks as well to basically allow this cross chain borrowing and lending. So far, we've got about a 15 to 17 person team right now, and we're rapidly growing. So looking forward to seeing what else is out there as we grow as a protocol.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. And given your experience and also your background, I think you can also share some thoughts about the current stage of Cosmos, especially the Cosmos Hub. There's a lot of conversations and discussions in the previous months, especially now that IBC shipped and the first kind of like application specific chains are gaining real traction, real world adoption and users and transfer a lot of value. The question is also like, is the whole architecture playing out right now as it was originally intended, especially with the Cosmos Hub kind of like being the heart of this interchain architecture. So what are your thoughts on that? And also, what is your general thought about the concept and the position of Cosmos as an entire ecosystem in the crypto space?
So I have an interesting way of answering this question, and I'd say that one of the biggest learning opportunities I had was participating in a hackathon at ETH Waterloo, and I was working with Sunny Agarwal and Billy Rennekamp. Basically, we went to ETH Waterloo. I think this was 2019. We were just participating in the hackathon. We were getting folks interested in Ethermint as well as Peggy. But the project that we were working on was basically the idea was using Google Sheets as like a side chain to Ethereum. Essentially, we figure, well, a lot of these ERC20 platforms have centralized backdoors anyway. Why not just take it to the next level and see if we can use Google? So we use Google OAuth to like sign Ethereum transactions, and once an Ether is on Google Sheets, you can manipulate it. You can make spreadsheets. You can showcase how the Ethereum is able to move around in different economic environments, and we called it Sheetcoin. We got quite a bit of traction, and they liked it a lot. The ETH Waterloo hackathon liked it a lot. We won like one of the first place prizes. But I think what this experience showed me was that it was very eye opening because it gave a sense on what a fully functioning IBC world could look like. So basically, you have different zones in the Cosmos space, and these zones in the hub can interact. And basically, IBC transactions are able to allow assets to flow between those different networks. And some of them can be, as flexible and usable as Google Sheets. Others can be used in different circumstances. And I think, being able to ship IBC really brings about an inflection point where you actually have that perceived functionality where assets are as flexibly interoperable within one ecosystem, and they can kind of interconnect between other networks. And so in terms of the positioning of the Cosmos Hub, I think it's great because the idea is that we're not necessarily focused on just like one central hub, but rather we're allowing sort of this port city example for many hubs to emerge throughout the network, kind of allowing for multiple self-sovereign worlds to kind of emerge. Of course, there is some major importance of the main Cosmos hub, but it's not meant to be like a central entity that other networks are going to need to rely on. Of course, shared security is a different story, or interchain security, but I think overall the ecosystem's coming together pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I have a very similar view on that. Based on, I'm pretty new to the Cosmos ecosystem, but based on all the conversations I had also with Billy, who was here on my channel very recently and shared the vision and idea about interchain security, and then the latest proposal, which is now on the Cosmos Hub, about routing IBC traffic through the Cosmos Hub. I think this is also a cool idea that could also drive more organic demand and circulation for the Atom as a coin. But yeah, that's interesting to know your thoughts on that. But now let's focus the discussion a bit more about Umee network. I think the core pitch is basically that it's a cross-chain borrowing and lending platform for both to bridge both Cosmos and Ethereum. And I think that is amazing, because obviously the majority of DeFi still takes place on Ethereum, even though the fees are completely out of this planet. But yeah, can you maybe expand on the core kind of like value proposition and idea of Umee, and how you think it could evolve over the next months and years?
Absolutely. So Umee as a cross-chain DeFi hub is going to have three main pillars. So the first pillar is we call it interchain leverage. So to kind of simplify it, it's basically leveraging assets on one blockchain to borrow assets on another blockchain. For example, you can leverage assets on Ethereum to borrow on Cosmos, or you can leverage assets on Cosmos to borrow Ethereum. And what this does is it creates opportunities where you can essentially, for example, leverage your Cosmos atoms, or Kosh, Iris tokens, Osmo tokens, or Sentinel tokens, or whichever. You can leverage those to borrow stable coins on the Ethereum blockchain. So you'd be able to access that tremendous stablecoin market, like DAI, USDC, USDT, Paxos, TrueUSD. You're able to access that market basically between the two blockchains. So that's interchain leverage. The second pillar, we like to call it multi-chain staking. But this is essentially allowing proof of stake assets to exist on multiple chains. Some ecosystems refer to this as like a staking derivative dynamic. But the point is that proof of stake assets should be able to be used to create staking derivatives that can exist on other chains. For example, if a Cosmos atom can exist on Ethereum as an ERC20, that's also experiencing the same inflation that's happening with the Cosmos atom on the ERC20 side. I think Persistence is looking at a few tools like this with their P-stake model. And from the Umee perspective, we want to support this development, because we want to ensure that these proof of stake derivative assets, so staking derivatives, are able to be used as collateral for borrowing and lending. So, for example, if I can take a staked atom asset that's currently yielding its normal proof of stake yield, and use that as a collateral to borrow something like DAI or USDC or Tether. And what's going to be really interesting is when the interest rate that you have to pay for borrowing that DAI or Tether or USDC can be counterbalanced by the proof of stake rate that is internal to the staking derivative that you're collateralizing. So we're going to see a lot of really interesting dynamics between proof of stake rates as well as lending rates. The third pillar, which is something that I kind of hold really near and dear to my heart, is we call it cross chain DeFi rates. But this is actually based on the concept of, you might be familiar, the time value of money. So, $1 today is worth more than $1 a year from now. And the time value of money is actually determined by in the US, it's determined by central banks. So it's determined by, the term structure of interest rates. So, the Federal Reserve determines that, the 3 month is over here, the 6 month is there, the 1 year is at this rate, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30 year. They determine, interest rates for those time periods, and therefore that is, the determinant of what the time value of money should be perceived as. From the Umee perspective, we think that the term structure of interest rates as they relate to crypto assets should be determined by more of a decentralized DeFi ecosystem. So many projects are kind of contributing to this, and we want to be contributors of ideas around what a what a yield curve or what a term structure of interest rate should be for crypto assets. What is the time value of an ETH? What is the time value of an Atom? What is the time value of a Link? What is the time value of a of a wrapped Bitcoin? And so we think that these metrics can be determined, and we think that proof of stake rates can actually play a major role, because what's special about a proof of stake rate is that these represent an opportunity cost. And so let's say we were able to encapsulate the proof of stake rate within like a 3-month time period. That technically gives you the 3-month opportunity cost of putting your assets somewhere else. And so based on just different considerations and how interest rates work, and how a zero coupon bond market could work, we want to capture those different time value components as they relate to crypto assets, and especially staked crypto assets. And so that's the third pillar that we're working towards, and that's one of the things that that really interests me about crypto in general. Just how do you encapsulate like something like time in the confines of like how crypto works?
Yeah, and it's amazing because it also allows everyone from retailers to institutions to also generate cash flow with cryptocurrencies, right? I think up until a couple of years ago, before DeFi really became a thing, and I think the term was around, at least in different variations before that, but there was not really any kind of like tangible product that people could use and easily access. I think that's a core difference between crypto a couple of years ago and crypto today, is that today you have DeFi applications that have billions of dollars in value locked, and daily active users, and people just play around with these lending protocols and wrapping protocols, like you mentioned, persistence. I've covered them here on my channel as well, and it's really amazing to just have this user experience to wrap your Atom on Cosmos, and then issue them as a kind of like yield bearing asset on Ethereum. It's so cool, and you can play around on Ethereum with it now. So I think this is definitely going to come. That's why I'm also so excited and bullish on the whole interoperability narrative, because it's probably the most important step for crypto to really gain mainstream adoption, at least in my world. But for people, and also for myself, so I'm not at all technical, and I have to also sometimes read things 4 or 5 times and to wrap my head around these things. I think it's also better to have visual stuff to understand these things. And there's actually a very cool graphic here. I'm just sharing the screen for the diagram. Maybe you can explain a little bit. That's kind of like the cross-chain collateralization process, how that works, and also where the gravity bridge comes in and why.
Yeah, certainly. And I think I can also use this diagram to kind of to answer one of the questions that Sunny had on Twitter. So basically, the concept of Umee is that we spent a lot of time looking at DeFi borrowing and lending protocols. And one interesting framework that came to mind is that so we spent a lot of time looking at Compound and Aave. And technically, if Compound and Aave wanted to merge, they could. They could easily merge. They could do so. And the way that they would do that is that they would cross accept each other's collateral tokens. So Compound accepts Aave A tokens, and Aave accepts Compound C tokens. And what you would actually have is like a merging of those two capital pools, where basically, Aave folks can borrow all the coins on Compound, and then Compound folks can borrow all the coins on Aave, and you just have one united pool. The reason that they don't do that is just for many reasons, different collateralization requirements, and just different constructs of the protocol. Also, the collateral tokens, A tokens and C tokens, are designed a little bit differently. But technically, you could do that. When Umee was designed, we had just collateral tokens in mind for how assets were able to be borrowed and lent. Basically, the idea is that so there's 2 ways to go about borrowing and lending. One is assets can be bridged directly from a gravity bridge directly to, let's say, the Cosmos borrowing and lending side of things. And this can utilize like the Gravity Bridge Zone that's being marketed, or the Gravity Bridge on the Cosmos Hub, or just different implementations of the Gravity Bridge can send assets to the borrowing and lending side of Umee. Um, the other way of allowing borrowing and lending is what I'm going to talk about in this diagram. So this diagram showcases a way where you can keep your assets on your respective blockchain and still allow borrowing and lending. So let's say if Ethereum users wanted to keep their assets on Ethereum as ERC20 tokens and they don't wish to bridge them to the Cosmos network, or let's say Cosmos folks want to keep their assets on Cosmos and they don't want to bridge them to Ethereum as an ERC20 token, the alternative is that instead of bridging their assets across the Gravity Bridge, they can actually bridge not their assets, but they can bridge the collateral tokens of the asset across the Gravity Bridge. So the way that this diagram is laid out is that, so from the top, you can see that a user deposits their asset on the Ethereum borrowing and lending side, and they receive a collateral token. And so, Compound calls them C tokens, Aave calls them A tokens. Umee, we're going to be unique. We're going to call them U tokens. Mm-hmm. And so you deposit an Ethereum asset, you get your U token. And so your Ethereum asset stays on Ethereum, but you have a U token that you can bridge across the Gravity Bridge. And then this U token can be used as collateral to borrow stuff on Cosmos. And so that's the basis of also why we're implementing our own Gravity Bridge. And keep in mind, it would behoove the Umee network to also use other folks' Gravity Bridge to bridge assets, but just for this particular use case, it would be using the current Umee Gravity Bridge. And as you can see from the bottom of the diagram as well, let's say a Cosmos user wanted to deposit assets on the Cosmos side, and they want to keep the Cosmos assets, allow them to remain on Cosmos. They would receive a U token to represent their collateral, and then that U token would be bridged over to Ethereum, and then basically that ERC20 version of the U token would be used to borrow assets on the Ethereum side. And so, as you can see from this diagram, it showcases why we're kind of implementing our own version of Gravity Bridge. So just in the circumstance in which people want to lending, they would be using the Umee Gravity Bridge. Of course, for just direct movement of assets to one blockchain or another, like let's say someone wants to move their Ethereum to the Cosmos side, or someone wants to move their Cosmos assets to Ethereum side, they can of course use the other Gravity Bridge, or they can use the Umee one as well. I think the point of this ecosystem is to just allow many networks to exist and many networks to have use cases, and we're here to interoperate. We're not necessarily here to just kind of focus on putting assets on just our own network. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're basically also, like you said, heavily inspired and borrowing a lot of ideas from what Aave and Compound has done on Ethereum. And I think that's also makes a lot of sense, because they have been the most successful DeFi projects in the world, DeFi blue chips, I think you can call them by now. And I think it's at the time now, when IBC shipped half a year ago, now the Gravity Bridge is around the corner. I think SwiftChain, they have used one of the first kind of like variations of that, or the original idea of Peggy back then, and launched it first. But I think it's time for Cosmos to also establish this giant kind of like DeFi infrastructure where people can play around with. And like I said earlier, retail and as well as institutions. So what is the plan? Obviously, with all these giant backers, and most of them are from the crypto sector or from the kind of like traditional financial sector. So I think this concept could also be interesting for them and their network to be used on a kind of like institutional DeFi level, right? Or what is your thoughts on institutional DeFi and how institutions could use something like that?
That's a good question, and it's certainly one that we spend a lot of time thinking about. For the initial implementation of the Umee network, we're going to be focusing on the open source ecosystem. We're focused on developing the community and just ensuring that just open source folks are able to access a DeFi platform like this and basically interact. Of course, from a future outlook, that is definitely a different story. So, I came from institutional bond trading. Um, I was a little bit, disillusioned by the bond market. So I kind of came into the capital markets thinking that everything was driven by math, everything was driven by logic and finance. And what I learned in my years in that space was that capital markets are somewhat driven by math, but a lot of times are driven by more idiosyncratic human components that just didn't always make the most sense from a logical perspective. And so, and the other thing about the bond markets is that they're very opaque. I would say that they're one of the most um, opaque markets out there, just considering that legacy infrastructure was used to build these markets, and it's a ecosystem of brokers, which isn't the most efficient way of allowing liquidity for these products. And so, one of the visions of Umee is to basically rebuild the capital markets, rebuild the bond markets in open source code. Um, and in open sourcing the bond markets, the way you think about it is that like the debt market in terms of size is approaching sort of that 700 trillion dollar mark to the roughly 2 quadrillion dollar mark. So the debt markets are huge, and they're also one of the most difficult markets to navigate. Yeah, I'd say with Umee, the eventual goal is to service the legacy debt markets using a new DeFi platform that they're able to access and understand from a more transparent perspective. And Umee is really moving towards the eventual future of uh, being a new bond market, basically rebuilding some of the most opaque financial infrastructures of the world using open source DeFi tech. And so I'd say that is the direction of the institutional play. That is the direction of as we start establishing things such as duration, after we start establishing certain full faith and credit of DeFi protocols, after we start establishing things like credit as it relates to a DeFi protocol. For example, once we have a yield curve, once we have a term structure of interest rates, platforms like Uniswap, platforms like Yearn, platforms like SushiSwap, or even the Cosmos network, Polkadot, the Solana network, they're actually able to have something known as their full faith and credit. Like, what is the full faith and credit of the Cosmos hub? What is the full faith and credit of Yearn? What is the full faith and credit of like Uniswap? Once these things can be determined, you're able to have pretty sophisticated duration-based instruments that are able to be issued by these blockchain networks. And so, the same way we look at something like global debt, like the United States government has a full faith and credit, like the Japanese government has a full faith and credit, like different nations have their own like credit quality. In the future, different blockchains can also have an inherent credit quality, something that is a determinant of how healthy the blockchain is, and just the level of trust you can affiliate them from a debt capital markets perspective. So we see the institutional play, we see the future. We also see how the institutional play coalesces with the open source DeFi play, and this is some of the stuff that motivates us. This is the stuff that gets us excited about reaching towards that $2 quadrillion market and figuring out how do we become a part of it.
Yeah, really, really cool. And I think, we're at a point now where crypto is at the verge of gaining real credibility and adoption also. As we see most of these funds, even Elon Musk and Tesla and companies are entering the space. So I think we're on the right train here. And now it's about to establish also the money markets here and also maximize the utility what DLTs provide. But you guys are also going to launch your own chain. I think right now you're in the testnet stage. Can you talk a little bit about the Umee chain, and also the Umee governance token and what role it has, and what people can, how people can also get access to that. I mean, is there also some kind of like liquidity bootstrapping event? Is it going to be available also on Osmosis or some Cosmos native dexes? And yeah, maybe you can just share some roadmap items here.
Yeah, certainly. So, we're currently in the testnet phase, beta testnet phase of the Umee network. We're really appreciative of the community. Like, we're super happy because a lot of folks are interested in being validators, and we're planning future validator incentivization mechanisms, and we're planning adversarial testnet. Current name is Umee Ventures. So think of we'll have quite a bit of vendor memes and kind of approach things from the Umee Wars. But basically, we're building out this Cosmos SDK based network, and the underlying token will be a proof of stake token. That will also be a governance token that will be used to determine certain configurations of the DeFi network. What's also interesting about the token is that in addition to just the governance of the protocol configuration of the network, it will also be used to make determinations around interest rates, collateralization ratios, and just various parameters affiliated with the DeFi protocol, and just how things should be existing cross-chain between the different networks. And so part of it will be used to better determine factors that help with ensuring the integrity of this DeFi network, such as which tokens to support, which collateral assets to onboard and to be used as collateral for borrowing and lending between networks, and just which other ecosystems to connect with. There will be liquidity mining programs. What's special about the liquidity mining programs is that we'll have them native on the Cosmos side. So you can imagine, some sort of a osmosis liquidity pool that would include Umee tokens. You can imagine different yield farming incentives on the Cosmos side. But another reason why we're utilizing the Gravity Bridge is that we want these tokens to exist on Ethereum as ERC20s as well. And so concurrently, you'll see quite a bit of yield farming on Ethereum apps. So basically, you can imagine something affiliated with SushiSwap, something affiliated with Yearn, or just different mechanisms to align some of the yield farming incentives on Ethereum protocols. And what becomes quite interesting is when we start approaching these cross-chain liquidity mining programs, where these tokens can also be used as network incentive mechanisms on other EVM compatible chains like Polygon, BSC, potentially Avalanche, Huobi Echo Chain, XDAI, and just other EVM compatible chains out there. So it's quite a lot to look out for out there. We think that just bootstrapping the community is just such an important part of this ecosystem building, and we intend to allow quite a bit of access to different communities in the blockchain space. Of course, initially based on the Cosmos SDK based network, but we're here to really live that vision of a multi-chain world, and we intend to figure out how do we expand presence to a multi-chain ecosystem.
Awesome, yeah. And bootstrapping the community is a good phrase, and also bootstrapping the user base eventually. So actually, obviously, liquidity pools with incentivized pools with APYs help a lot on that end. Another thing that a lot of people these days are super excited about is airdrops. So, is there anything? I don't know if is there anything in the works? A lot of people ask me that, like, man, you have to ask Brent about this. Is there any airdrop or other incentive in the works?
We'll absolutely figure out the stake drop configurations of the protocol, and I think we'll have more information about that in the coming cycles. Yeah.
All right, so stake drop. That's the name of the game. Very cool. So before we get into some of the community questions, that's actually quite very good questions there. Can you share a little bit of the current timeline, where you guys are currently standing? What's your main focus? Is there still some kind of like debugging going on right now? And also, what's the timeline then for the launch?
Certainly. So right now we're in testnet phase. We're planning our adversarial testnet. We'll have some more details about that in the coming days. In terms of mainnet, we're aiming for Q4 2021. And we also intend to have a subsequent leverage trading competition. So basically, allowing folks to participate in a trading ecosystem, but with the added component of being able to take a leverage position. So you can think of Umee as building a Cosmos leverage Cosmos leverage module. So similar to how there's a liquidity module. The Umee network is focusing on allowing leverage in the Cosmos ecosystem. So sort of this, I guess one example is being able to leverage long Cosmos atoms. So if an individual could deposit Cosmos atoms, borrow stable coins, and buy more atoms, and then just kind of repeat that process. We're figuring out a way to allow this usability in a DeFi ecosystem. So just on the roadmap, we're planning to work towards that full functionality heading into the new year. But basically, we'll have something for folks. We'll have something for folks to basically utilize for some of these initial functionalities in the Q4 mainnet launch.
Awesome, yeah, and I hope you'll also come to Lisbon on November 5th here of our Cosmos conference, and you can probably share some major updates then. That would be really cool. But yeah, now let's go into some of the community questions. The first one is from Blockchain. He is part, actually, I think, from the Stargaze team. So he's asking, would Umee accept NFTs as collateral? And if so, how would they be valued?
Yeah, certainly. So, we had a bit of a chit chat in the Stargaze Discord channel a few days ago, basically allowing NFT type assets to be used as collateral. And so, NFTs in terms of their market value based on liquidity can be difficult at times. But I think that in the future, NFTs would be a major collateral for borrowing and lending, especially when you can kind of ensure a bit more robustness of NFTs. For example, if NFT were able to be backed by a real world asset, or if NFTs were backed by social credit as it relates to where that NFT came from. So something that Shane brought up was around social tokens. So social tokens related to an individual's social presence on like social media is in some ways kind of a proxy for credit. So credit quality is determined by the major rating agencies. Social credit has the ability to be determined by social presence. And so if there's a better way to broadly align some of those credit components with an NFT, I think it will create opportunities where these assets can be better valued and better used as collateral for borrowing and lending. And so we're going to see this. NFTs it's just the beginning for NFTs right now. And because at the beginning, prices are very volatile, there's not a lot of liquidity, and people are still trying to figure out how to use these things. But as the NFT market evolves, and as social configurations and more collateral connections between these assets can be established, it's going to be a huge market. I saw this myself with ironically, mortgage-backed securities. A lot of the more esoteric tranches are, to be honest, very similar to NFTs. Like some of these tranches, like the IO tranche or the XO tranches of mortgage-backed securities, trade the same way as artwork trades. It's like people trade them as if they're trading art. And so I think as we develop more liquidity, we develop a more robust market. These assets would be, very usable for collateral when it comes to just traditional borrowing and lending on a DeFi protocol, or even just normal borrowing and lending on a centralized institution.
Yeah, I agree. And I think everyone who is now listening and is relatively new to crypto, I think it's important to understand that NFTs is way more than just expensive JPEGs, right? And it's basically, you can tokenize everything that's unique in the real world, from real estate to also obviously intellectual property and all those kind of things, licensing rights. There's so much that goes into that, and reputation, like we were saying. So this is definitely something that is here to stay. Safe also had a follow-up question to that, but I think it's mostly answered. So let's move on to the next question, which you kind of like already in this call answered, from Sunny, asking why add the gravity bridge to Umee directly instead of just using the standard gravity bridge zone?
Absolutely. So back to that, sort of a initial configuration of the collateral tokens. When it comes to Umee, we're actually able to use both. I think with Umee, it very likely can use the gravity bridge zone when it comes to sending assets from one blockchain to another, such as let's say there's the gravity bridge zone, and a lot of assets get sent from Ethereum to Cosmos. Umee very much would behoove Umee to allow these assets to be used as collateral, and so in that instance, we would definitely be using the gravity bridge zone, as well as if assets were moving from the Cosmos hub via the gravity bridge, those assets likely can be accepted as collateral on the Umee borrowing and lending side of things as well. The reasoning behind the Umee network's own version of gravity bridge initially will likely coincide with the idea of the collateral token. So, based on that diagram that we shared earlier, if collateral tokens from the Cosmos side can be used to be bridged through the gravity bridge to the Ethereum side, I guess technically it can use the a gravity bridge zone as well. But the point is that this would be inherent to the Umee network, and it would mainly be used for just the cross-chain borrowing and lending side, as opposed to the main gravity bridge would probably be used for many different things. It probably wouldn't. There'd be other things non-related to Umee, and I'd say the point is that we'd be able to accept assets from both sides of the equation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I think it just adds more kind of like flexibility also. And then in that also similar context, JL Ibercrypto, I think from Spain, is asking why you guys choose the gravity bridge logic for Umee instead of the SIFT chain IBC EVM compatibility, for example, and if both logics could be integrated as well.
Yeah, so we've been working on the Peggy based implementations. I've been involved in a lot of Peggy development throughout my time in the Cosmos space. I also introduced Billy Rennekamp to Deborah from the Althea team back during ETH Denver a few years ago. This was actually right before COVID hit, and so basically subsequent to those conversations, the Althea team was beginning to create their implementation of Peggy, which is currently the gravity bridge. And so, we made some just decisions on which initial bridges to implement, and we decided on an implementation of the Gravity Bridge to be initially one of the main tools that we wanted to use for the Umee network. In terms of other bridge implementations, I think it makes sense to be open-minded and to consider some of the use cases. But overall, as the Umee network develops, we'll likely see which bridges to initially work towards. But overall, I mean, we're fans of some of the other bridges out there, with ShiftChain and with Agoric, and just how they've approached some of these challenges. And in terms of looking at some of the assets they support, I think it would make sense for Umee to figure out different ways of allowing those assets to be used as collateral for borrowing and lending. I'd say that when it comes to bridges, I'd say that Umee is aiming to be a bit more neutral in terms of which ones to implement and work towards. I think the goal of the Umee network is really to just be the best borrowing and lending platform, just to figure out how to maintain a set of neutrality, while also just ensuring that the assets that get collateralized on the borrowing and lending protocol are most robust and just able to be properly used as the safest versions of collateral for facilitating the use cases in the leverage module.
All right, man. I think we covered a lot of great things and learned a lot as well about cross-chain lending and borrowing. And for everyone who is now listening to this, like, man, this sounds really cool and exciting. I want to become part of this. I want to somehow get involved and be also one of the early users, because sometimes it's the best thing in crypto you can do is just be a user, be an active user, right? Most people don't do that. They're just like speculating and FOMO buying cryptocurrencies. But guess what? You can actually also become a user. So I highly encourage everyone to do that. We'll also leave all the links to reach you, to find you, to get in touch with you under this video. And yeah, we'll keep track of that. And hopefully we'll see you also here in Lisbon.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Yeah, this was awesome. Really appreciate Cryptocito.
Cool. Thanks, man. Take care.